What I learned was in two parts. So the first was the Australian Aboriginals had an initiation that turned boys into men, right? And after that initiation, the boys no longer lived with the women's camp. The girls returned to the women's camp as women. The boys actually joined the men's camp after that initiation. And it became clear to me that we don't have a clear initiation in modern society today. We don't have a clear initiation in the West. And so we think it's the first car or the first job or the first fuck or something like that. But it doesn't actually ever feel real. And guys who've gone through this journey are constantly searching, well, what is it that makes me a man? What is it that makes me a man? You determine what makes you a man. But you can only get to that point of thinking freely, frankly, if you're willing to step away from the West. And that's why I think working with indigenous medicine is so powerful. When you look at many of these indigenous communities, indigenous tribes, especially the ones that work with ayahuasca in South America, right, in the South American Amazon, you're talking about a consistency where the young boys consistently become masculine warriors, right? How is it that it's consistent? If it's consistent, then it must be an environmental factor, right? There must be something here that is not about the human template, but actually about the environment in which the human grows up in. And so when you sit with this medicine, you are actually being initiated in a way that our ancestors have been initiated in turning boys into men within the indigenous communities, which completely changes the way that you can think about your own masculinity journey, because at the very least, you're having a new experience. But more accurately, you are joining the ranks of, frankly, a very small group of men globally that sit with these sorts of medicines. And it's very profound and it is extremely powerful. And it changes the entire way that you think about masculinity when you realize that nothing that the rest of the world has to say matters. And that fundamentally changes your relationship with yourself in a very, very powerful way, unlocking the ability for you to be self-reliant, which fundamentally comes down to being self-loving and self-directed. And so what a lot of guys end up experiencing in their journey is they lean on their mother or the mother and their partner for love because they don't know how to love themselves. And they lean on their father or a strong woman or their boss in order to get direction. But a powerful masculine man loves himself. He directs himself. He's also not controlled by any emotions, right, from within himself or from others as well. He is not controlled by anything outside, right? He maintains his presence in every situation. I learned this from the indigenous by watching these extremely masculine men sit there who didn't have, 50 extra pounds of muscle, who weren't, covered in tattoos or facial hair or whatever it may be, right? I was looking at them and I was like, what is it about these guys? They don't have all this money. They don't have the houses and the cars. They're living in huts. What is it that they have? Their ability to overcome fear, really being in touch with the idea that as human beings, we are apex predators. We are at the top of the food chain. And we don't think about that because the way that society organizes us is into lower levels of the food chain behind some CEO or government official or church official, etc. But we have the ability to be masculine ourselves, and that changes everything.